Don't you dare, ref. That she got the ball. Good afternoon, Tottenham fans all across the world, and hopefully you are enjoying your Saturday afternoon. However, the fun stops there tonight, because tomorrow we face an absolute massive challenge as we head up north to St James's Park to take on Newcastle. And there is a sense of trepidation in the air surrounding this fixture, as we have suffered two really heavy defeats up there over the last two seasons, losing 6-1 underneath Antonio Conte and also 4-0 under Ange Postecoglou last season. So it's an absolute big test for us, and coincidentally, this match comes right before our home North London derby, just like last season. And we know how we went into that North London derby. We were 3-0 down after 31 minutes. So we could really do with a morale-boosting victory heading into that North London derby after the international break. So it's absolutely crucial for us to show up with some grit and some pride, arrive prepared to handle business and break this curse at St James's Park. Tottenham also go into this weekend without having a recognised fully fit striker available for this game. Does Ange Postecoglou go with the same starting 11 that picked up 3 points in emphatic style against Everton last weekend? Or does he make one or two changes to the lineup to cater for a Newcastle team that is going to offer us much more of a test? So let's get into it. The lineup that I think Postecoglou will pick to take home all 3 points. In goal, Vicario comes into this game off the back of a clean sheet last weekend against Everton, and we do hope for another clean sheet here tomorrow. Also, I hope that he's been working on his long-range passing in training this week, because he did have to resort to it last season, if anybody remembers, and he probably will have to resort to it again earlier on in this game, especially in the first half. So I would hope this week he's been working on it and he's found his range. At left-back, Destiny Udogie was substituted after 73 minutes against Everton due to fatigue in his hamstrings, and it was also the same story against Leicester. He came off for the same reason as well. So the question is, how long can Destiny Udogie be able to give us tomorrow? But I will say Jed Spence needs to be prepared to come off the bench and step up if needed. At right back, Pedro Porro is in for a very tough afternoon coming up against Anthony Gordon, whose work rate is absolutely incredible. Gordon will be running up and down that line all game, which means Pedro will face a more intense defensive test than he has in the previous two games. We need a massive performance from Pedro Porro on that side, but also going forward, he is one of our most creative players, and his passing game will be absolutely essential tomorrow as well, as we will need to mix things up going forward. Plus, Porro is capable of pulling off a spectacular long-range shot or delivering a world-class cross. So we need a big performance tomorrow from the postmaster, who does deliver UK-wide. Newcastle fans, I've warned you. At right-sided centre-back, Christian Romero marked his 100th appearance for Tottenham Hotspur, rising high above Everton captain James Tarkowski to power home a header off the crossbar from a James Maddison corner, whilst also showcasing his leadership in defence. And that is something that I've been looking for and I've been asking for from Romero. He blocked shots, made last-ditch tackles, and was instrumental in securing the clean sheet. You could see his hunger, his desire throughout the match, and we need the exact same commitment from Romero today. In recent years, Isaac has given him a really tough time, but his only objective today is stop Isaac. If he can neutralise Isaac, we will have a great chance of getting a result here today. At left-sided centre-back, Postecoglou did not say whether Van de Ven would be missing or not, so we are going off the assumption that Van de Ven is available. And despite a concerning knee-jarring moment earlier on in the game, he shrugged it off and ran the full length of the pitch and then laid the ball off for Captain Sonny to be able to dispatch home. However, defensively, he won just one of his 3 aerial duels and one of his 6 ground duels, which is an area that needs to improve for tomorrow's match against Newcastle. He'll need to address this, especially to counter Isaac, who was the only striker last season to make Van de Ven look like an average player. At CDM, Bissouma did apologise to Spurs fans after he unleashed an absolute powerful effort from outside the box, hitting the underside of his crossbar and scoring his first goal for the football club, which I found unbelievable. I couldn't believe it was his first goal for this club. But, like I've said before, when Bissouma is motivated and performing well, Tottenham win games. When he isn't, Tottenham lose or drop points. For instance, he wasn't there against Leicester. Look what happened. When his form fell off after the first 10-11 games of last season, look what happened. Which shows how important Yves Bissouma is to Postecoglou's system. However, Last week's performance was not enough to say sorry, and he needs to back up last week's performance with another solid display here. Newcastle, if we're going by the game plan that Eddie Howe has put on Tottenham Hotspur over the last 2 seasons, they will put early pressure on Bissouma. So in the first 20 minutes, he needs to be composed in possession and avoid being dispossessed, getting his pocket picked, or making careless errors. If he can deliver some effective switches of play, like he done last week, I mean, I've only been waiting a year for him to produce that out of his locker, we could very well be able to potentially turn the tables on Newcastle and create some opportunities of our own going the other way. Into the number 8 role, and this is where it becomes very interesting. Rodrigo Bentancur is back in action after missing last weekend's win over Everton due to a concussion. Postecoglou now faces the decision on whether to keep Dejan Kulusevski in the number 8 role, drop him to the bench, or move him into the front three. And I believe Kulusevski should be played in that forward line, which I will explain later when I get in there. But this then would open up a spot in midfield. And I do think Postecoglou will bring Bentancur back into the fold here. And the reason being, Bentancur is effective on both sides of the game. Defensively, he's reliable and can hold his own in the midfield battle, which will be absolutely crucial in this game. But also offensively, he can maintain possession in tight spaces better than someone like Papamata Sarkhan, which I also think will be important for controlling the game. Additionally, as we saw underneath Antonio Conte, Bentancur also possesses a significant threat from set pieces, which is why he ended up getting his concussion against Leicester in the first place, because he was a threat all night long from set pieces, and eventually at some point they decided enough is enough and went and took him out. So for those reasons, I think that's why Postecoglou will pick Bentancur. Moving into the creative role, and it is the guy that got an assist last weekend, of course putting in that corner for Romero's header, and he's gradually starting to play with a little bit more confidence. However, I believe there's still a lot more to come from James Maddison. He's beginning to deliver some solid performances, but today we need him to do more than just unlock the door. We also need him to be able to contribute defensively against the likes of Gameres, Joe Linton and Tonali. Newcastle will likely force us back more than what Everton or Leicester did, and this is an area where I think Maddison tends to fall short for Tottenham Hotspur and will not get away with hiding today. We need everyone to pull their weight, and his experience will be absolutely crucial in this regard. So I'm hoping this can be James Maddison's breakout performance for Tottenham this season. Now, moving into the forward area, it's become a little bit complicated. Of course, no Solanke, no Richarlison available. So does Ange Postecoglou go with the same front three last weekend of Udobert off the left, Son up top, or Johnson off the right? Now, I have dropped Brendan Johnson to the bench, and I'll explain why when I bring Kulusevski up. When you see the forward line, of course, it could be any variation of that three. It's not the three I would prefer, but it is the three that I think Postecoglou might pick, and the variation of that three. Starting off the left-hand side, and Udobert had a very impressive debut last week. Although he did fade out of the game in the second half, despite that, I really liked what I saw from him. Anytime high balls went out to him, it was like it was landing on a pillow. It just plucked it down out of the air so aggressively. Every time he got the opportunity, he ran at his fullback and forced him backwards, which is not where the fullbacks want to be, and ideally what you want your winger to do. So a lot of ticks in that area from me. Ideally, end product would be nice, an assist or a goal, but I do think that will come. And I think this is an ideal opportunity for Udobert to be able to build on that performance. However, it will be a completely different test, much more physical than what it was against Everton or against Leicester, requiring him to be able to track back a lot more frequently than he did against Everton or Leicester, especially in the early stages of this game. Plus, he won't have the comfort of playing in front of his home fans, which can also boost a player's confidence. So for me, if he does get the nod in this game will be a huge test of Udobert's character, and it'll be interesting to see if he can rise to the occasion and deliver another strong performance here. He will be up against either Trippier or Livramento. I prefer Trippier. I think he'll run the legs off him. If it's up against Livramento, I think he's in for a really difficult afternoon. I really highly rate Livramento. I think he's very good defensively and can be a bit of a problem going forward, and he will be on a high, especially after his recent England call-up. So Udobert will be in for a tough afternoon. Let's see whether our Frenchman can stand up or not. At right wing, I will bring in Dejan Kulusevski, and I have a very good reason for it. First of all, absolutely brilliant footwork last week in tight spaces, tight control, using his left and his right foot to be able to wiggle through and laying off an absolute perfect pass for Bissouma to be able to strike first time. So brilliant from Dejan Kulusevski there. Now, obviously, I would prefer him to go central, Son out the left and move Udobert to the right. And we might see that variation. However, Postecoglou does prefer to play with Son up front. So I do think if Kulusevski is to come into this forward line, it will be on the right-hand side. And the reason why I brought him in is the last 2 seasons we've really struggled at St. James's Park, getting overwhelmed very early on. The 6-1 defeat underneath Antonio Conte, we were 5-0 down after 21 minutes, and we were 2-0 down after 38 minutes last season, and lucky not to be even further behind at that point. So Newcastle really come at us nice and early. And last year we found Vicario trying to bypass that press with a long ball out, but he only had Johnson, Son and Werner to aim for, and in reality none of them could really have that physical presence to be able to hold the ball up and bring others into play. So all it kept on doing was the ball just kept on being recycled and coming back at us. It was relentless, wave after wave after wave. And I was very grateful to get into half-time only 2-0 down, because we had no answer to Newcastle's press. So this is where I do think Postecoglou needs to get ahead of it, because I do think Eddie Howe will instruct his players to do the exact same thing. Why wouldn't he, when he's got so much joy over the last 2 seasons? It's probably been one of their easiest wins of the season over the last couple of years. So I think he will employ the exact same game tactics around here, getting at Tottenham, press them nice and high aggressively, and hopefully they crumble. So we will have to have a different answer. Vicario will end up having to resort to try and play that ball beyond Newcastle's press again, and this is where I think Postecoglou needs to get ahead of it and put Kulusevski in that forward line. No Solanke, no Richarlison is not ideal, because you could have had one of them through the middle to be able to do that job for you. However, they're not available, so I think it's imperative that Kulusevski is put into this forward line, whether up front or on the right hand side. So we have that out ball, so we have that option. And it's one thing Kulusevski is absolutely great at, being able to hold that ball up under pressure and bring others into play, or get turned and drive us forward. So I think it's absolutely crucial he's in that forward line for that sole reason. Because what it does do then, it relieves pressure on that back line, and it gives us a foothold in the game and be able to give us an option to be able to get out the other way. Also, gives us an early option to be able to surprise Newcastle, stun them if we can. Get that out ball straight away, get it in behind to Sonny, and hopefully he can put us 1-0 up nice and earlier on in this game. So I think this is absolutely crucial that this happens for this reason alone. Then up front, of course, with Dominic Solanke out injured and Richarlison out injured, we don't have a recognised striker heading into this game, so I'm betting it will either be Sonny or Kulusevski that starts up front. However, I do think Son is expected to continue in the central role. Postecoglou, whenever he doesn't have that striker option, he usually prefers to play Sonny up there over Kulusevski. And also, Son is off the back of scoring 2 goals last week against Everton, and hopefully he can replicate the same again today. If you look at anyone across that forward line, he is the most clinical and lethal finisher we have. So we want to try and put him in an area, especially in this game, where he can finish off those chances. And the good thing is we've got someone like Udaiber and Kulu who will be able to create, and that's why I think Brennan Johnson has to be dropped to the bench, because he will not create for Son. So this time it should actually work Son through the middle. Now you've got good players either side of them to be able to create. However, I'm looking more from Sonny than just that deadly finishing. He is captain, so he will need to step up and lead this team. When things get tough, even on the build-up to this game, flying up north to Newcastle, the trip to St. James's Park, in the dressing room, out on the pitch where things will get tough, every single player is going to turn to this guy to find a solution, to find the pathway forward, to get us out of trouble. And I need to see that from him in this game. It's a big game for us with the North London Derby coming up. We win this, I tell you now, we will not lose to Arsenal in the North London Derby. So guys, that's my predicted lineup. Please give me your thoughts in the comment section below. Your predicted lineup and maybe some of the reasons why you've picked them. If you disagree with anything I've had to say, please let me know. But guys, I'll see you back here tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. for the pre-match build-up for the big game. As always, come on you Spurs. In the big hands we trust. We never stop.